Look, I never thought I would become the detective of my own love life, but that's exactly what happened. And when I discovered the truth, man, it was like taking a punch to the stomach. So sit down, because today I'm going to tell you how I became Sherlock Holmes of WhatsApp conversations and discovered the exact moment when my 3-year relationship died. And spoiler, it wasn't when I thought it was. You have no idea what I discovered. I spent entire weeks analyzing more than 47,000 messages. Yes, 47,000 messages exchanged over 2.5 years. I counted them one by one. I created spreadsheets, graphs, timelines. I became a love scientist. And what I discovered completely changed my perspective on relationships. It all started about 2 months ago. I was there, in the middle of the night, obviously doing that thing everyone does but no one admits, stalking the ex's social media. Don't judge me. Everyone has done it. I was there looking at his photos, trying to understand how someone who said they loved me every day could move on with life as if I never existed. And that's when I got that strange feeling. You know when you feel like something doesn't add up? Yeah, it was exactly that. I spent hours there, going through photo after photo, seeing him happy, seeing him laughing, seeing him living a life that didn't seem to have room for the memory of me. And then I started to notice something. All the photos of him smiling, all the photos of him looking genuinely happy, were from after we broke up. In the last few months that we were together, the few photos he posted, he looked, I don't know, forced, as if he was posing to not make it seem like something was wrong. I kept asking myself, how did we go from I love you, you are my life, to okay, bye, overnight? Like, it didn't make any sense. Relationships don't end like that, out of nowhere. There have to be signs. There has to be something showing that things are going downhill. And that's when I had the craziest idea of my life. I was going to investigate our WhatsApp conversations. All of them. From the beginning. The first thing I did was export all of our conversations. Did you know you could do that? I didn't. I found out that WhatsApp has a function that allows you to export entire conversations, with dates, times, everything. I downloaded an 847-page file, 847 pages of conversation. When I saw that number, I realized the magnitude of what I was about to face. But I didn't give up. I created a system. First, I separated by months. Then, I created categories for each type of message: love messages, neutral messages, conflict messages, messages of longing, future messages, work messages, messages about other people, each one with a different color in a giant spreadsheet. I also started analyzing technical patterns: message times, response times, message lengths, use of emojis, use of stickers, call frequency. Everything was cataloged. I created graphs showing the evolution of each indicator over time. It looked like a scientist's work. Now you must be thinking, this girl has gone completely crazy. And look, you're not wrong. But I needed to understand. I needed to know where I went wrong, where things started to go off track. Because in my mind, we were fine until the day he came and said he wanted to break up. But were we really? And here is where it gets interesting. I discovered that we exchanged, on average, 73 messages a day. In the first few months, it reached 120 messages daily. In the last few months, it didn't go beyond 15. I found out that he used to respond to my messages in an average of 3 minutes. In the last few months, it took an average of 4 hours and 32 minutes. I discovered that he used 47 different emojis at the beginning of the relationship. By the end, he only used 3: the thumbs up, the okay, and the sleeping one. But what impressed me the most was discovering that he stopped asking about me. In the early conversations, he always asked how my day was, if I was okay, if I needed anything. After a certain point, he only talked about himself, about his job, about his problems, about what he wanted to do. I became a listener in a conversation that used to be a dialogue, and then I started seeing the patterns. He began to respond to my long messages with short messages. When I sent 3 paragraphs about how my day was, he responded with, "That's nice." When I sent a picture of the food I was making, he didn't even comment. When I sent songs that reminded me of him, he just liked the message. I also discovered that he started to leave my messages on read. You know what that is, right? It's when someone views your message but doesn't respond. In the first year, that never happened. Not even once. In the second year, it started to happen sporadically. In the third year, it became routine, especially with the more affectionate messages. So I took my phone, opened WhatsApp, and started going back in time. Man, what a trip this is. Have you ever stopped to read your old conversations? It's like watching a movie of your own life. I started with the last few months, which were already a bit tense. Lots of arguments, lots of never mind, lots of we'll talk later. But as I went back in time, the conversations became sweeter, more affectionate. It was like watching a movie in reverse. I discovered things that left me speechless. For instance, he started using periods at the end of messages. It seems trivial, but who uses periods on WhatsApp? It's like shouting, like being formal, like creating distance. In the first few months, there were no periods. After a certain point, every message ended with a period. Okay? Understood. Got it. It was as if he had created an invisible barrier between us. Another thing that impressed me was the issue of voice messages. At the beginning, he would send voice messages that lasted 5-10 minutes. Voice messages where he sang, imitated characters, told jokes. Later, only quick, functional messages. I'm on my way. I'm in traffic. I'm busy. The voice messages turned into press releases. And the photos? Man, the photos tell an amazing story. In the beginning, he sent photos of everything. Photos of breakfast, sunsets, the cat on the street, the song playing on the radio. Everything was a reason to share with me. Later, only necessary photos. Photos of the location where he would pick me up. Photos of the menu to choose what to eat. The photos became functional. They lost their magic. But what hurt me the most was discovering that he stopped sending good morning and good night messages. This might seem silly, but it was important to me. It was as if he was saying, "You are the first person I think of when I wake up, and the last when I go to sleep." When that stopped, it was as if I was no longer a priority in his life. And then I thought, if I can map out exactly when things changed, maybe I can understand what happened. So I created a method. I would note every day how our conversations were, how we talked to each other, whether there was affection, fights, or indifference. I would make a timeline of the end of our relationship. The first thing I did was create categories. I separated the messages into pure love, I love you, miss you, you are important. Good routine. How was your day? What did you eat? Where did you go? Conflict. Arguments, misunderstandings. Coldness. Short responses, no affection. Indifference. Automatic replies, no real interest. Each category got a color in my spreadsheet. Then I created indicators. How many loving messages per week? How many times did he say my name? How many times did he ask about me? How many times did he share something personal? How many times did he talk about the future? How many times was he affectionate without me asking? Everything was measured, cataloged, analyzed. And man, the numbers don't lie. In the first 6 months, he said, "I love you," 23 times a week on average. In the last 6 months, 2 times a week. In the first 6 months, he talked about our future 8 times a week. In the last 6 months, 0. In the first 6 months, he asked about my day every day. In the last 6 months, 3 times a week. But what impressed me the most was discovering that he stopped using my name in the messages. You have no idea how important this is. When someone uses your name in a conversation, it's like they're saying, "I'm talking to you, specifically you." When they stop using it, it's as if you've become just anyone. I started separating the conversations by months and analyzing each one. In the last 3 months before the breakup, the conversations were very dry. Lots of, "Okay, right, cool. No, I love you. No, miss you. No heart emojis." It was like we were two acquaintances scheduling a work meeting. I also discovered that he began to avoid personal topics. When I asked if he was okay, he would change the subject. When I tried to talk about some problem of mine, he would give quick advice and shift the focus. When I tried to delve deeper into a subject, he would dodge. It was as if he had created an invisible wall between us. Another thing that caught my attention was that he stopped making plans with me. Before, he would always talk about places he wanted to visit with me, things he wanted to do with me, experiences he wanted to share with me. After a certain point, when I suggested something, he always had an excuse. "I'm out of money. I don't have time. We'll see. We'll talk later." Never an enthusiastic yes. And the phone calls? Man, that was depressing to find out. In the first few months, we talked on the phone every day. sometimes 2-3 times a day, long conversations about everything and nothing. Later, the calls became sporadic, functional. I'm on my way. I'll be late. I won't make it. The calls turned into announcements. I started separating the conversations by months and analyzing each one. In the last 3 months before the breakup, the conversations were very dry. Lots of okay, right, cool, no I love you, no missing you, no heart emojis. It was as if we were two acquaintances setting up a work meeting. But then I went back further. 6 months before the breakup, there were still some I love yous here and there. It wasn't the rain of love it used to be, but it was still there. There were also some fights, some indirect comments, some "you don't care about me anymore," signs that I ignored at the time because I thought it was something temporary. And here I need to talk about something I discovered that really made me think. I began to notice that I changed the way I spoke to him. In the first few months, I was spontaneous. I said whatever came to mind, sent audio clips of me singing, talked about my dreams, about my insecurities. Then I became more cautious. I started to measure my words. I started avoiding topics that I thought might bother him. I stopped talking about things that made me sad, because he always said I was being dramatic. I stopped sending audio clips of me singing because he once said I was off-key. I stopped talking about my dreams because he always found a way to show why they were unrealistic. Little by little, I silenced myself. I became a light version of myself, a version that didn't bother, that didn't question, that didn't ask for anything. And you know what's worse? Even so, even by nullifying myself, even by diminishing myself, he continued to pull away. Because the problem wasn't me being too much. The problem was, he didn't love me anymore. I kept looking back. A year before the breakup, the conversations were still pleasant to read. There were future plans. There was, when we get married. There was, our kids will be beautiful. There was that intimacy that only people who truly love each other have. Conversations about daily life, dreams, fears. It was beautiful. And it hurt to read that, knowing how the story ended. I discovered that he used to tell me everything. About his coworkers, about family problems, about financial worries, about his fears. I was the person he turned to when he needed to vent. I was his safe harbor. Then he stopped sharing with me. He stopped turning to me when he was down. He stopped seeing me as someone who could help. And I also discovered that he stopped asking for my opinion on things. Before, he always asked what I thought about his decisions. What clothes to wear, what gift to buy for his mom, whether he should accept that job offer. Then, he started making decisions on his own and just informing me, as if my opinion was no longer relevant. But it was when I arrived in January 2022 that I started to see a subtle change. He began to take longer to respond. It wasn't anything absurd, but if before he responded in a few minutes, now it was a few hours. And the responses became shorter. Where he used to write 3 lines explaining how his day went, now it was just, it was good. Where he used to send pictures of everything he was doing, now it was just plain text. I noted everything. I made graphs, I made tables, I even did statistics. Yes, I know it seems crazy, but you don't understand. I needed to know. I created categories: affectionate messages, neutral messages, fight messages, response time, emoji usage, shows of affection. Everything was cataloged and analyzed, and that's when I started to see the pattern. Between December 2021 and January 2022, there was a sharp drop in displays of affection. The I love you that were daily became weekly. Heart emojis practically disappeared. The calls that were every day became every other day. It was as if someone had turned down the volume on our relationship. I discovered that he started talking about work differently. Before, he complained about work, saying it was boring, that he wanted to leave. After January 2022, he started talking about work with more excitement. He talked about interesting projects, cool people he had met, and opportunities. It was as if work had become more interesting than our relationship. But what caught my attention the most was one specific thing. He stopped using my name in messages. It seemed silly, but he always called me love, princess, kitten, and suddenly, out of nowhere, it became just hi and bye. No affection, no personalization, as if I were just any person. I created a statistic just for this. In the first 6 months, he used some affectionate term with me 89% of the times he called me. In the last 6 months, 12%. 12%. That means almost 90% of the times, he talked to me as if I were a mere acquaintance. I kept investigating and reached the end of December 2021, New Year's Eve, and then I found something that gave me chills. December 30th, 11:47 p.m. I had sent a long message, talking about how happy I was with us, about how incredible 2021 had been beside him, about how eager I was for what 2022 had in store for us. A message full of love, full of hope. Do you know what he replied? Cool. Good night. Cool. Good night. 2 words. For a 2-page Word document message that I wrote with my heart. I remember at the time I was a bit upset, but I thought he was tired, that it was New Year's Eve, that there was a lot going on. But now, rereading that, I saw it wasn't just tiredness, it was indifference. And here I discovered something that made me very sad. I started to realize that I always justified his cold attitudes. I always found an excuse. He's tired. He's stressed. He has problems at work. He's not very demonstrative of his feelings. I always defended him, even from myself. I went further back, December 2021, and then I began to find the clues. On December 15th, we had a big fight. I don't even remember why, but it was about him not having time for me, about him always being busy with other things. I said I felt abandoned, that it seemed like I wasn't a priority in his life anymore. He said I was being dramatic, that work was important, and that I needed to understand. The fight ended with him blocking me for a few hours. When he unblocked me, I apologized. Yes, I apologized for saying I felt abandoned, He accepted the apology but said I needed to grow up and understand the responsibilities of adult life. At the time, I swallowed it. I thought he was right, that I was being childish. But rereading it now, man, I'm so angry at myself for apologizing for having feelings. I discovered that every time I tried to talk about our relationship, he turned it into an issue of me being immature. Every time I said I missed him, he said I was clingy. Every time I mentioned that I wanted more attention, he said I was needy. He made me believe that my feelings were flaws. I kept going back. A year before the breakup, the conversations were still nice to read. There were future plans. There were, when we get married. There were, our kids are going to be beautiful. There was that intimacy that only people who truly love each other have. Conversations about daily life, about dreams, about fears. It was beautiful, and it hurt to read that knowing how the story had ended. But it was when I arrived in January 2022 that I started to notice a subtle change. He began to take longer to respond. It wasn't anything outrageous, but if before he would reply in a few minutes, now it was a few hours, and the replies got shorter. Where he used to write 3 lines explaining how his day was, now it was just, it was good. Or, where he used to send pictures of everything he was doing, now it was just plain text. I noted everything. I made a graph, a table, I even did statistics. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but you don't understand. I needed to know. I created categories: affectionate messages, neutral messages, argument messages, response time, use of emojis, displays of affection. Everything was cataloged and analyzed, and that's when I started to see the pattern. Between December 2021 and January 2022, there was a sharp drop in displays of affection. The I love you that used to be daily turned into weekly. Heart emojis practically disappeared. The calls that used to be every day became every other day. It was like someone had turned down the volume on our relationship. But what caught my attention the most was a specific thing. He stopped using my name in messages. It seems silly, but he always called me love, princess, kitten. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it was just hi and bye. No affection, no personalization. As if I were just anyone. I kept investigating and reached the end of December 2021, New Year's Eve. And then I found something that gave me a chill in my stomach. December 30th, 11:47 p.m. I had sent a long message, talking about how happy I was with us, about how incredible 2021 had been by his side, about how excited I was for what 2022 had in store for us. A message full of love, full of hope. Do you know what he replied? Cool. Good night. Cool. Good evening. 2 words. For a 2-page Word message that I wrote with my heart. I remember that at the time I was a bit upset, but I thought he was tired, that it was New Year's Eve, that there was a lot going on. But now, rereading it, I see that it wasn't just tiredness. It was indifference. I went further back. December 2021. And then, I started to find the clues. On December 15th, we had a big fight. I don't even remember why, but it was about him not having time for me, about him always being busy with other things. I said I felt abandoned, that it seemed like I was no longer a priority in his life. He said I was being dramatic, that work was important, that I had to understand. The fight ended with him blocking me for a few hours. When he unblocked me, I apologized. Yes, I apologized for saying I felt abandoned. He accepted the apology but said I needed to grow up and understand the responsibilities of adult life. At the time, I swallowed it. I thought he was right, that I was being childish. But rereading it now, man, what anger. What anger at myself for apologizing for having feelings. I kept investigating. November 2021. Here things were still relatively normal, but I could already see some cracks. He started canceling dates at the last minute. There was always an excuse. Work, family, a commitment that came up out of nowhere. And I always understood, always said no problem, always reorganized my life around his. I found out that he canceled 23 dates in the last 6 months of the relationship. 23, I counted them one by one, and I always accepted, always said everything was fine, but it wasn't. Each cancellation was a little piece of my self-esteem being eroded. Each something came up was a confirmation that I wasn't a priority. October 2021. Here, I found something interesting. He started talking a lot about a new coworker. Let's call her Fernanda. Fernanda was funny. Fernanda was smart. Fernanda had innovative ideas. Fernanda. At first, I didn't care. Jealousy wasn't my thing. I was always laid back about these things. But as the days went by, Fernanda became a constant topic in our conversations. Today, Fernanda told a very funny joke. Fernanda had a brilliant idea for the project. Fernanda knows an amazing restaurant. And I, like an idiot, always asked about his work, always showed interest. Unknowingly, I was basically encouraging him to talk about the woman who would end our relationship. I counted, in October, November, and December of 2021, he mentioned Fernanda's name 186 times. 186 times in 3 months. More than he talked about our future. More than he talked about the things he liked about me. More than he talked about any other subject. But I didn't notice. Or rather, I didn't want to notice. Because yes, I found out. Fernanda wasn't just a co-worker. 3 months after we broke up, they made their relationship official. Coincidence? I don't think so. And the worst part, when I saw their photos together, I realized she was exactly the opposite of me. I'm extroverted. She's reserved. I'm emotional. She's rational. I'm affectionate. She's independent. As if he had deliberately chosen someone who was nothing like me. I looked further back. September 2021. Here, I found what I was looking for. The exact moment when everything changed. September 23rd, 2021. Thursday, 7:32 p.m. I remember it like it was yesterday. We had planned to have dinner together. I was all dressed up, all excited, because it had been a while since we went out alone. And then he arrived at the restaurant looking like he was at a funeral. He said he had met someone new at work, and that this person had made him rethink some things about life. He said he was feeling trapped, that he was questioning if he was really happy. He said he loved me, but that he was confused. I, obviously, was desperate. I asked if there was anything I could do, if it was something I had done wrong. He said no, that it wasn't about me, that it was about him, that he needed some time to think, but that we would stay together, that he just needed space to process things. I accepted because I didn't want to lose him. I said I would give him the space he needed, that I would be understanding, that I would wait for him to sort things out in his head. What an idiot I was. Because that was exactly when everything ended. Not on the day he said he wanted to break up. 6 months later. It was on September 23rd, 2021, when he said he had met someone who made him rethink life. Fernanda. He was talking about Fernanda. And I discovered something that made me very angry. That day, September 23rd, after dinner, I sent him a long message. I talked about how I understood that he was confused, about how I would give him the space he needed, about how I was sure we would overcome this together. I talked about the love I felt for him, about how I was willing to fight for our relationship. Do you know what he replied? "Thank you for understanding. You are amazing." That's it. 2 sentences. For a heartfelt message, for a declaration of unconditional love, for a promise of patience and understanding. 2 cold, generic sentences that he could have sent to anyone, and that's when I understood. When someone thanks you for being understanding, when someone compliments you for being amazing but doesn't talk about love, when someone accepts your full availability but offers nothing in return, it's because that person has already disconnected emotionally from you. It's because you have become an obligation in their life. After that day, I can map exactly how things started to die. First, the "I love you" became less frequent. Then, the calls decreased. Then, the meetings began to be canceled. Then, the conversations became dry. Then, he stopped using my name. Then came indifference. Then came the end. I spent 6 months trying to save a relationship that had already ended 6 months prior. I spent 6 months apologizing for things I hadn't done. I spent 6 months accepting crumbs of affection from someone who had already given their whole heart to someone else. And you know what's worse? I think deep down, I always knew. I think every woman knows when things have changed. We just don't want to accept it. We want to believe it's a phase. It's stress. It's work. It's anything but what it really is. The end of love. I created a graph with the frequency of "I love you." From September 2021 onwards, it was a free fall. From 15 "I love you" per week, it dropped to 8, then to 4, then to 2, then to 1, then to 0. It was like watching our love die in real time. I also mapped the displays of physical affection. Before September, he always talked about missing me, about wanting to hug me, about how beautiful I was. After September, nothing. The only references to the physical were functional. "Are you ready? What time will you arrive? It's cold. Take a coat." Rereading these conversations, I see all the signs I ignored, all the cries for help that I didn't hear, all the moments when I should have confronted him instead of swallowing it down, all the times when I should have preserved my dignity instead of begging for attention. I discovered that he started treating me like a friend, not like a girlfriend, not like a partner, but like a friend. He talked about his problems but didn't want to hear about mine. He asked for advice but didn't offer support. He used my shoulder to cry on but didn't wipe my tears. And I let it happen. I let it happen because I thought it was better to be a friend in his life than to be nothing at all. I thought that if I were understanding, patient, and available, he would remember why he loved me. But that's not what happened. The more I diminished myself, the more he pulled away. I also discovered that he stopped including the future in our conversations. Before, he always talked about plans. Next year we're going to travel to Europe. When we move in together, on our honeymoon. After September, only the present, only the immediate, as if the future with me no longer existed. But I also see one thing. I see that I truly loved, that I fought until the end, that I gave my best, even when I wasn't receiving his best. And that's not something to feel bad about. It's something to be proud of, because to truly love is rare. It's brave. It's beautiful, even when it's not reciprocated. I learned that when someone stops talking about the future with you, it's because you're no longer part of that person's plans. When someone stops showing physical affection, it's because they've lost the attraction. When someone stops asking about your day, it's because they've lost interest. When someone stops fighting with you, it's because they've lost the emotional investment. Because fighting is also a form of love. It means the person cares enough to be bothered by things. When they stop fighting, when they accept everything easily, when they agree with everything, it's because they don't care. It's because you no longer have the power to stir that person's emotions. I discovered that in the last 3 months, he agreed with everything I said. Everything. I wanted to go to the movies. He agreed. I wanted to have dinner at home. He agreed. I wanted to talk about the relationship. He agreed. But it wasn't an agreement of partnership. It was an agreement of indifference. Now, when I see him with her on social media, I don't feel that pain in my chest anymore. I feel pity. Pity because he lost someone who truly loved him for someone he barely knew. Pity because he destroyed 3 years of history for an illusion. Pity because one day he will discover that the grass on the other side isn't greener. It's just different. And me? I learned that relationships don't end overnight. They end day by day, message by message, indifference by indifference. I learned that when someone wants to take a break, it's already done. I learned that when someone talks about another person with a sparkle in their eye, it's over. I learned that when someone stops using your name, they have already taken you out of their heart. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive a pain I thought would kill me, that I can rebuild my life from zero, that I can be happy alone, that I deserve someone who loves me the way I love, with everything, every day, without questioning. I learned to identify the signs, response time increasing, displays of affection decreasing, talk about other people increasing, future plans disappearing. Now I know that when these things start to happen, it's not time to try to save. It's time to preserve your dignity and leave. I learned that I need some time means I've already decided to break up. I just don't have the courage to say it yet. I learned that it's not about you, it's about me, means it is about you, but I don't want to seem like the bad guy. I learned that you are amazing means you are amazing, but not for me. I learned that love is not about accepting less than you deserve. Love is not about erasing yourself to avoid being a bother. Love is not about begging for attention. Love is about reciprocity, about priority, about daily choice, about consistency. So, if you are going through something similar, if you feel that things have changed but don't know when, you don't need to become a detective like I did. You already know the answer. You just don't want to accept it, and that's okay. It hurts to accept it. It hurts to admit that it's over. It hurts to see that the person you love doesn't love you anymore. But it hurts more to keep deluding yourself, because the end is not the end of the world. The end is the beginning of a new story. And your new story will be much better than the previous one, because you will write it with someone who truly loves you, someone who will never make you feel invisible, someone who will never stop using your name, someone who will never make you question if you are loved. This person exists. I know because I found them, and that person is me. I learned to love myself. I learned to value myself. I learned not to accept less than I deserve. And now, when someone comes into my life, it will be to add, not to subtract. It will be to make me happy, not to make me question my own worth, because I am worth a lot, and so are you. And we don't need anyone to remind us of that. We just need to look in the mirror and remember, I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be a priority. I deserve someone who doesn't make me feel like I am asking for too much when I'm asking for the minimum. So, thank you for accompanying me on this painful but necessary journey. Thank you for letting me share with you this discovery that changed my life. And remember, you are amazing. You deserve the world, and if someone can't see that, it's their problem, not yours. A kiss to your heart and see you next time.